guys, I hope you're all doing well. Welcome to today's video in which we are talking concealer recommendations for mature under eyes. Now, I'm 41 years old and I absolutely know that that is not old. I know that my eyes are not as mature as they're going to get. However, I have absolutely noticed a massive change in my whole eye area. I'd say within the last 5 to 6 years. Back in my 20s and my early 30s, I could use any concealer that I wanted to, but I've noticed now that in the last few years, I can't use the same concealers that I used to absolutely love. Now, it's not that I can't use them, it's just that they're not as flattering as what I would like them to be. I think it's safe to say that we all have our own insecurities and things about our face or our body that we are really self-conscious about, and I can tell you that my under eyes have always been an insecurity of mine, and this isn't something that I'm just paranoid about. I actually remember, I must have been about 36, a woman actually stopped me in the street because she was so shocked at how dark my under eyes were. Oh my God, the trauma. And she started reeling off all these remedies and things that I could do to brighten my under eyes. But I think it's safe to say since then, I do not leave the house without concealer. Because of this, and because of these insecurities of mine, it means that I've tried a lot of concealers. There can be makeup releases every week, makeup palettes, blushes, foundations, and I might not be tempted, but with concealers, as soon as they're released, it would take a wild pack of horses to stop me from buying it. I'm by no means saying that I've tried every concealer in the world, because I obviously have not, but I've tried a good amount and I've been highly influenced by some of my favorite YouTubers to buy some, and then I've ended up kind of disappointed. So I think it's really important to start this video by telling you exactly what I look for in a concealer, and maybe mention a few concealers that just don't work for me at the moment. First of all, I really like to have a light to medium coverage, but it has to be buildable, because there are some days when I want or need a light concealer, but there are some days when I actually just need a little bit extra. A concealer has to feel hydrating on my under eyes. The minute that it starts to feel dry or hard to blend, then you can forget it. So it has to feel like it's actually doing my under eyes some good, rather than making them look dry and cakey. I also look for some radiance within a concealer, so a little bit of luminosity. So I just don't really like a full flat concealer. Now that doesn't mean that I don't like matte concealers, because I do. For me, it has to have a little bit of a luminous finish for me to feel like I will enjoy it. I have fine lines here, I have fine lines there, whether I'm wearing concealer or not. All these claims for concealers to be completely 100% crease proof, I think if there's lines there to begin with and you put product on there, you're gonna have lines, whether it's a great concealer or not. So I do allow for a little bit of settling here. I think that's just normal. So this whole video is going to be focused on our under eyes rather than the rest of the face. Only one concealer I use on blemishes. It's the NARS Soft Matte Complete Concealer, and amazing at concealing blemishes, redness. It's gorgeous. So for this video, I'm going to show you footage of me applying each of the concealers to my under eyes without powder and to a bare face, because I think that gives you the best indication of what it will look like. Under eye prep is so important when it comes to applying concealer. If you haven't hydrated your under eyes, it's like having the best paint in the world, but if you've not primed the walls, you're not going to get the best application, you're not going to get the best result. We'll be following this video with like a part 2, which will be all about concealer application for mature under eyes, and in that video I'll be talking about powder, under eye hollows and under eye prep. Before we get into the video, just to let you know that I do post videos like this on a weekly basis, so if that sounds like something that you might be interested in, then please do consider subscribing to the channel, because I would love to have you here. So let's get into these concealer recommendations. So I'm not really doing this in any particular order, but I'm just going to start with the cheapest of the bunch. It's one of the best concealers I've ever used in my whole life, and it's the Collection Lasting Perfection Concealer. Now, I didn't actually ever intend to purchase this. I was putting in an order online. I think it was on Boots in the UK. And in order to get free delivery, I had to spend an extra £3 or £4. This was £3 and I was absolutely blown away. This is without a doubt one of the best concealers I've ever tried. It absolutely outperforms concealers that I've used that are 20 or 30 pounds. It's absolutely special. I have this in the shade Biscuit, number 7. It promises 16-hour wear. It's buildable, it's blendable and breathable. It claims to be sweatproof and it's also vegan. And I would agree with all of those claims. I don't even have to set this concealer, which is similar to the other ones that I've chosen also. I don't have to set them. The only reason it's not my absolute holy grail and my absolute favourite concealer is because out of the 5, it dries down quite quickly. So usually if a concealer dries down too quickly, I will not give it the time of day. However, I will forgive this for that because this is really, really special. Just an amazing formula. However, I can't use this as liberally as I would the others, so I literally pop it into the places where I feel like I need it and blend it out one dot at a time. Out of the 5, I'd say this has the least amount of creasing out of the 5 of them. It's a really phenomenal product, and like I say, the only reason it's not an absolute holy grail number 1, the only thing I ever use, is because of the dry down time. But it's an incredible concealer and my absolute favorite drugstore concealer for sure. Number 2 on the list is the Glossier Stretch Concealer. And this is the only pot concealer that I have on the list. I have this in the shade G9. They have I don't think they've reformulated these concealers now. Basically, Glossier came out with a foundation, so they renamed their concealers and brought out more shades in order to match the foundation, which is a really good idea. The foundation's absolutely lovely and the concealer is beautiful. This is the most natural of the 5. And this for me is my go-to on my no makeup days. It's formulated to camouflage skin realities like dark circles, blemishes and redness, but it will always look like skin with a dewy glowy finish, and I would 100% agree with that. This is definitely the most luminous out of the 5, but it's super buildable. I think this comes in 32 shades. I feel like everybody should have one like this in their collection, you know, something that is just a little bit more minimal but is buildable. And the consistency is quite serum-like too. It just feels really nice. Big favourite of mine. So the next one is the Charlotte Tilbury Beautiful Skin Concealer, and this is available in 30 shades. It is a medium coverage and super hydrating concealer. The aim is to conceal, correct, brighten and lift the look of your eyes and face. Blends really beautifully. It's definitely creaseless. The only drawback I would say to this, and I did and ah about putting this in, you might find that when you apply this, there are tiny little speckles of what seem to be glitter in there. Now, I didn't notice this for actually a little while. It was when I looked at myself in artificial lighting, I was like, whoa, where the heck has that glitter come from? But it's actually from this. It's very hard, I can't pick it up on camera, I have tried. For me, it doesn't matter because nobody's ever said to me, why have you got glitter on your face? And if there's anybody that's going to mention glitter on my face, it's my kids, but they've never mentioned the thing. It's not super noticeable, but it is there. There is a little bit of, I don't know what it is. Some people say they can see it. Some people say they can't. I don't know, but I just do want to warn you about that. But for me, it really doesn't matter because the actual performance of this concealer outweighs everything. It's beautiful, it's so hydrating, and it's just so lovely to apply, and it does everything that I want it to do. So that will always be a top 5. Well, in 2023 anyway, it's definitely in my top 5. Now we're coming up to my top 2 concealers, and these are actually new releases in 2023. The next one is the Tower 28 Swipe Serum Concealer, and this is absolutely beautiful. I have this in the shade KTown, and this is available in 20 shades, and it claims to be a hydrating concealer that glides on like a serum, but it has medium buildable coverage to instantly cover dark circles, redness and blemishes. And this is just a wow concealer for me, especially when I use it all over my face. It does say that you can use it as a foundation, and I would really agree with that. It does feel like a serum, it does feel really hydrating, and as soon as it's on, it will stay put all day and doesn't really need to be set. I think it's a really good one for mature under eyes, you know, because it doesn't settle into those lines, and even if it does, it will be really, really minimal. It's the opposite of a dry concealer, and I have been really enjoying this. It's definitely going to be a hard one to push from my top drawer, that's for sure. Really love this one, a really lovely release, and actually not one that's going to break the bank either. I think it was about, I think it's about $20 around that price. Now for my number one concealer, I am totally in love with this, and it's the Natasha Denona Hy-Glam concealer. This is incredible, and it's been an absolute godsend on my under eyes. It's actually available in 50 shades. The one thing that wins with this concealer is it kind of sets itself. I don't need to use powder ever with this. I mean, sometimes I choose to, if I'm maybe going on a really long day out or an evening out, but this, don't need to set it. It's stunning. I can't imagine that I'm going to find a concealer that I love more than this one. It claims to be a brightening and hydrating crease-proof serum concealer. I bought this in N3, and it has high-tech active ingredients that work instantly and over time to brighten dark circles, reduce puffiness, and blur the appearance of fine lines and wrinkles after 28 days of daily use. Now, I haven't used it for 28 days consecutively, so I can't really comment on the long-term benefits of the concealer, but I can say that it's absolutely stunning, and I can tell you that it has amazing coverage, so a really little goes a long way. However, if you want to build it up, you absolutely can. It does not crease under my eyes. It's hydrating, it's brightening, and it's long lasting. It really is a super concealer and one of my top recommendations for mature under eyes. But just as a point of reference, I just wanted to show you 3 concealers that I love, but they just don't work on my under eyes anymore. The first one pains me to say it, but it's the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer. I can tell you that I did not use anything else but this in my 30s. It was my absolutely holy grail, but in the last few years, I've just realised that it's just not sitting right for me anymore, and I don't know whether that's because better ones have come along. And don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful concealer. It's absolutely gorgeous. I'm not saying that any of these concealers that don't work for me are not good. They are good, they're brilliant, but there's better ones out there for my mature under eyes. The second one I was highly influenced to buy, and it's the Huda Beauty Faux Filter Concealer. I have this in a couple of shades because I wanted to keep giving it a chance and a chance. It's a brilliant concealer, actually really good for spot concealing and blemishes. Just too drying on my under eyes. It tends to go on really beautifully and my under eyes will look gorgeous. However, after a few hours, it started to sink into the fine lines and it just doesn't look very flattering. Gutted because I did give it a really good go, but it just doesn't work for me anymore. Third one is one that I really wanted to love, but it's the e.l.f. Camo Concealer. Now this is actually the hydrating camo concealer. I haven't tried the original one, so I'm sure people will tell me to go and get the original, but this, first of all, it just dries down rapid and doesn't give me any time to work at all. And when I applied it, it just didn't look great on my under eyes. It's a little bit too heavy. So yeah, just not one for me, unfortunately. Before you run out and purchase a concealer that somebody is recommending, really think about what are you looking for in a concealer? What are your concerns? Is it darkness? Is it hollows? Is it fine lines? I think all those things are really important questions. And if you're thinking about buying any of these concealers, do make sure you take a look at the concealers that don't necessarily work for me anymore. Because if you love those, then you're not really going to like any of these recommendations. So there we are, my top 5 concealer recommendations. I really hope this was in some way helpful. Do keep your eye out for my next concealer video, in which I will be talking about application, on my darkness, how I try to minimize my under eye hollows and avoid any creasing or crepiness under the eyes. So much for joining me for another video. If you have any recommendations that you'd like to share, then please do drop them in the comments. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one. But until then, take care and bye for now.